cover the steps for Excel Project
Okay, I'm going over the
8.4
steps for
and
Excel
OST 240.
project.
So steps 1 and 2 just goes over downloading and enabling editing for the project file. So step 3, we want to purchase a new car. We have the scenario lined out for us. We have our trade-in, our annual interest rate, the months we're going to pay, and the price of the car. So basically what we want to do is create a what-if analysis to kind of compare some different options for purchasing vehicles. So, but before we get started, we want to click on our car loan worksheet, and it wants us to rename our cells so that it makes it easier for us to recognize what that cell value is. So on B3, we want to go up here. So we can click on cell B3, and then in the name box, we can select B3 and we can actually rename it. So I'm going to type in price, and then you need to press your enter key to save it. So then if I go to cell B4, select it and rename it, press enter, and then we'll just go down that whole list of cells here. B5, we want to call it cash back. We want to press enter. B6, we want to name it loan. Press enter. Jump down to B8. We want to call it months. Press enter. B9, we want to call APR. That's our annual percentage rate. You have to press enter every time just to go ahead and save that change. And then our last one, B12, is total cost. And remember, I didn't say all of these, so if you make sure that you look at your instruction sheet so that you see all of the correct names and get those added. All right, so now we're ready to create our scenario. So to do that, we want to go to our data tab. So typically, anytime we're talking about creating scenarios based on the data in our worksheet or whatever, we can typically find those tools in the data tab. So on our data tab, we want to go over to the forecast group, and we want to click on this what if analysis tool. So we get the pop-up window for the scenario manager, so we want to add a scenario. So the scenario name we want to start with is original financing. And then it asks us which cells we want to base that on. So I'm going to delete the one that was in there by default, and which the default cell was the one that we actually had selected at the time. And we want to add the range of cells that the instructions gives us. So and remember to select multiple cells that are not side by side or on top or below of each other. We need to hold the control key. So I want to select cell B3. I want to select B5. I want to select B8. And I also want to select cell B9. So I look over here in my changing cells. I have 3, 5, 8, and 9. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now for this first one, the original financing, we have all the values that are on our new car loan worksheet, and that's the values we want for our very first one. So we could click OK and go all the way back through the steps again, but since we know we want to add another scenario, I'm just going to go ahead and click Add. And this one I'm going to call the intermediate car. And again, we want to use those same cells, so we don't have to change anything there. We'll click OK. Now on this one, in the scenario values window, we do need to change the values. So those are in the instructions. And I jumped a little too quick. So price was $33,900, $1,500 cash back, 36 months. And on the last one, the APR, it's 2.4%. You can convert that to a decimal if you choose. If you choose to leave it as a percentage, make sure you put in the percent sign. So we want to go ahead and click OK. All right, so now we have two different scenarios, and we want to add one more. So this one we want to call the intermediate. I'm sorry, the luxury. And again, we still want to use these same changing cells and click OK, and then we want to change these values again. So this time we want 62,700. We want 2,500, 60, and we want 3.9%. And click OK. So now we have our three different scenarios. We have original, which is the very first one. By default is what we had on there. We have intermediate, and we have luxury. So it gives us an option now to actually view these. So we first of all we want to see the luxury. So I'm going to click on show, and then notice how it changed the values in on our worksheet to reflect, what the terms would be if we chose to go with the $62,700 vehicle. Now the next thing we want to do is we actually want to see a summary of these three scenarios side by side. So we can click on this summary tool, and then it gives us an option to choose the report type. So we just want to see the summary, and then we can choose the results. So right now, of course, by default it's on cell B12 because that's what's selected here. But I want to remove that, and I'm going to hold my control key again, and I'm going to select cell B10 and then B12 and click OK. So now when I get my summary, we have the current value, which is the last value that we actually looked at on our worksheet. And then we have the three comparisons together. So we have original, intermediate, and luxury. You can look at those and kind of try to make a decision on which scenario might actually work best for you. With the original, the less expensive car, and the intermediate car, the buyer could get a little lower payment rate, but again, you have to, consider the other part of it. You're paying a year longer. So there's pros and cons, and this scenario summary can kind of give you a good idea of what the big picture looks like. So let's see our next step. All right, so we're on step 5 now. So now we want to move to this MPG data worksheet. And here we're going to actually filter out some of the data or some of the records so that we're only seeing records that are relevant to what we're interested in. So one of the things, the vehicles, this MPG data worksheet was downloaded, and it tells you the website, and the greenhouse gas scores range from 0 to 10, where 10 is the best. Vehicles with the best score on air pollution and greenhouse gas receive a SmartWay designation. So later on in the project, we'll have a reference to the SmartWay designation, so you can just kind of remember that that's based on air pollution and greenhouse gas scores. So the first thing we want to do is to filter out some of the cars that do not have good scores. So we want to do some custom filtering. So the first thing we want to do is add a filter to our headers. So we have to select that header row because our very first row does not have our column headers. So I will select the range, and then I'm on the data tab, sort and filter, and I'm going to click on filter, and that puts an individual auto filter on each column of information. So we want to do a custom number filter to show only rows where greenhouse gas score is greater than 8. Alright, so our greenhouse gas score, and we come over here to greenhouse gas score, and we're going to click on our custom filter, and we want to go to number filters, and then we can come down here to custom filter, or actually we could even go up here. We could do it as a custom filter, or we can just go up here to greater than, because we know that we want a value that is greater than 8. So then we can just go ahead and click OK. And notice that before we had 2,344 records, now we're down to 86 records. So we want to create another number filter to show only records where highway MPG is greater than 35. So here we have highway MPG, and we want to go to our number filters again, and again we want greater than, and then we're going to just type in 35. I'm going to click OK. And notice that didn't really change anything, so probably because vehicles with a higher greenhouse gas score already have a higher MPG. So next, we're going to create a custom text filter to show only rows where trans column contains the word auto. So we want to find this trans column, and so now we want to do that sort, and we're going to do a text filter, and this one is contains. So we want to scroll down to contains, and as long as our cell contains the word auto, it will stay. It will not be removed or hidden. So go ahead and click OK. Now notice we had 86 before. Now we're down to 52 records. All right, so the next one, we want to create a custom text filter to show only rows where the value in the fuel column equals electricity or gasoline. So right now in our fuel column, we have gas, we have electric, we have hydrogen. I don't know, I guess that's the only three things we have. So now we can do this filter. We want to do a text filter. And this one, because there's actually two parameters, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the custom filter. So now we can say equals electricity or equals gasoline. So that's going to pull records that have either or. So it doesn't have to have both, but it has to have one or the other. So notice now we have 52 records. So when we do this sort, we're down to 48. So we're really narrowing down our list of vehicles. At this point, the list of more than 2,000 cars should be filtered down to just 48 records. So, and then you can look down here on the taskbar and see that we just have 48 records left. So we want to copy the filtered data to cell A1 in the My Car Data worksheet. Okay, so it wants us to copy the heading rows, but it does not want us to include this all models. So I'm going to click in cell A2, and I'm just going to go over to my header rows, and I'm just going to scroll down until I have all of my records selected. I'm going to go to my Home tab, and I'm going to click on Copy. And now it wants us to paste it onto My Car Data worksheet. So let me click that tab, and we want to click on cell A1. And then for the paste, we want to make sure that we keep the source column width. So I'm going to go up here and use the paste tool in the clipboard group. And that way I can look at the different screen tips for the paste options. So the instructions wants us to keep the source column widths. So when I come in the different options for paste, it's the clipboard that has the two arrows. So I'm going to choose it. And now it wants us to copy cells A1 to P1. So I'm just going to copy these cells. And it wants us to paste those in row 52. So I'm going to go down here to 52, and I'm just going to do a regular paste. It doesn't give any kind of specific paste to use on that one. So now in cell A51, we want to type criteria. And we want to apply the accent for cell style. So if we go ahead on our formula bar and click the check mark, then we can actually do some formatting. And I want to find accent 4. All right, so next we want to set up the criteria in the rows below 52. So our criteria is in the fuel column that it has to be gasoline, and so in the fuel we want to type in gasoline, and the value in the highway MPG column has to be greater than 35. So we're just typing our criteria in the row below our column headers. And in cell A55, we want to type in filtered data. And again, we want to apply that formatting. So I'm just going to check off on our formula bar. And again, same format, accent 4. And then step G wants us to autofit column A. So remember, just to autofit, you get your pointer as this two-sided arrow and double click it. Alright, so now we want to use an advanced filter to find the rows that meet the criteria and copy that filter data to another location beginning in cell A56. So what we want to do is first I'm going to select my range of data because this is what we want to filter, and I'm going to click advanced. So it tells us that our list range is A1 to P49, and we want to copy it to another location. So our criteria range is this range here. So that's A52 to P53. And then we want to copy it to cell A56. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And if I scroll down here, the instructions are telling me 16 rows should have been copied. So if I just select this bit of information, or the model names here, I select the whole list of the model names. If I look down here at the bottom right, the bottom right taskbar, I can see that that's 16. So my filter worked, my advanced filter worked. All right, so now we want to filter, or we want to format that filtered data set. So that cells A56 to P72. So I'm going to select my range of data, and we want to use a table, or a white table style 1. So I'm going to go back to my home tab, and I want to format table, and we want to find white table style light 1. So under the light, it's that very first option. And it's asking me just to make sure I have the right range, and I'm just going to say OK. Alright, so step 8. Now we want to insert a new column to the left of greenhouse gas score. So anytime we want to insert to the left, we select the column, then we can right click and insert. And make sure you selected the column from N at the top, because we want that column inserted on the whole worksheet, not just in this table. Okay, so now we want to copy the values from cell M57 to M52. So I'm going to click on cell M57 and select down to M72. I'm going to right click and copy, and then I simply want to paste that into my new column. And I want to name this column Combined CMB MPG Icon. So CMB MPG Icon. All right, and from here we want to, we're going to continue working with filtered data. So we want to use a icon set. So I'm going to go to my data, and all right, so I'm going to select my range of cells, and now I want to go to my home tab, and I want to go to conditional formatting. So on this one, we actually want to use the icon sets, and I'm going to just go ahead and select more rules because I could select this, but I don't have the option to do the second part of this rule. So I'm just going to click on more rules. So what it wants us to do is it wants us to use the signal meter with 4 filled bars. So here I've got format style as icon sets. Now I can choose this one's 5 ratings. So remember there's 2 different ones. We wanted the one with 4 ratings. And we only want to show the icon. So right now we have a numeric value in these cells. So we want that replaced with these bars, and we don't want both values to be there. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. So now we just have these our icon, which is just a visual reference rather than a numeric. Okay, so now we want to sort it so that the meter with 4 filled bars is at the top. So I'm going to sort. Okay, so we want to do a custom sort. So I'm going to click on our filter, our auto filter, and here I am going to choose custom sort. And now I'm going to select model. We want it by values in alphabetical order. We want to add a level, and we want it by this combined MPG icon. We want it by cell icon, and we want those 4 bars on the top. So then we'll just go ahead and click OK. And notice that this has been sorted now alphabetically by model, and then by each model is then sorted by that icon. All right, so now we want to go back to the main data set at the top of the My Car Data worksheet. And we want to add subtotals for each change in model to calculate the average for the following: air pollution score, city MPG, highway MPG, and combined MPG. Okay, so now we actually want to add subtotals to our main data. So we want to come back up here to the top of our My Car Data worksheet, and we want to select our original data table. And on the Data tab, we want to click on Subtotal. So we're going to get this pop-up that says, you know, some of the criteria we need to make sure we have in place. So I'm going to click OK. So our instruction tells us that we want to add subtotals for each change in model. So we have at each change in model, and that we actually want to calculate the average. So we want to change our function to average, and we want to do that for air pollution score. So I'm going to uncheck CO2, and I want to find air pollution score, city MPG, highway MPG, and combined MPG. And then I'm just going to click OK. Now if we scroll down here, now we can see that we have this grand average row. So we have this essentially this overall total row. And step 12 wants us to collapse the data to just show the total rows. So right now we see a lot of rows. So, and we have it broke down by each model. So if we come over here to the left margin, we see this 1, 2, 3. Well, if we click on this 2, that's just going to show us the totals now. So that's how we switch it to our total row. Now if we decide we want to go back, see everything, we can click that 3 again. So I'm just going to go back to click the 2, so we just are seeing the total rows. So step 13, now we want to go to the MPG pivot table. So I'm going to select MPG pivot table, and the first thing we need to do is refresh that data. So this data was pulled in from somewhere, so we're just going to refresh. Now we no longer have those errors. Okay, so step B wants us to apply the white pivot style medium 1 quick style to the pivot table. So we have these pivot table tools, so we can click on the design tab and we can change that style. So we want white pivot style 1, light, no, we want medium. So, okay, I think it's in the medium group, we want the very first option. Okay, so remember we talked about the SmartWay designation earlier, and that was based on greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions. So now we want to display a splicer for SmartWay field. So these are vehicles that are, have the high rating based on this SmartWay designation, and we want it to show only data where SmartWay value is elite. So to display the splicer, again, we got to go up here to our pivot table tools, and this time we want to click on the Analyze tab, and now we want to insert splicer. So I'm going to just click on this and drag it over so it's not covering my table. And we want that to be our splicer to be for the SmartWay designation. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And now we get this little splicer, and if we click on Elite, that narrows this down for us so that we see these vehicles that meet that SmartWay criteria. All right, now to pay for the new car, we've decided to start a bakery business. So not only are we buying cars, now we're also going to start baking. So the first thing we need to do is go to the bakery business worksheet, and in cell B1, so I'm going to click on cell B1, notice that we have this formula. And we want to use this formula to calculate profit. So we want to carefully review the assumptions and formulas in this worksheet before entering the following solver parameters. So the thing about this is you have to have the solver to be able to do to run this formula. So if you click on your data tab, all the way to the right in the Analyze group, you should see Solver. If you do not see Solver, you will need to add it. So real quickly, I'll go through the steps to add the solver. If you are on your data tab and you see this solver over here, you do not need to do this step. So we want to go to File, and we want to go down here to Options. Now when we get this Excel Options pop-up window, we want to scroll down this list to Add-ins and click it. So now we have a list of different add-ins that's available, and you should see the solver add-in. So you want to click it, and then you want to click OK. And then once you do that, you probably will, it might take a moment or two for that add-in to load. Now, I can't guarantee that it will work. If you have issues with it at home, you may want to try it here on campus. Or if you still have issues with that part, you may need to submit it without doing this last step, but I would like you to at least try to get this solver add-in added and to use it to evaluate your formula. Okay, so I have the solver. So what I need to do now is I want to find the maximum profit, the maximum possible profit in cell B1. So I want to click on my solver, and we want to set the objective. So the objective for this project is to analyze our formula. So I'm going to click into my set objective cell, and now I'm going to click cell B1. So that's the objective. And then the changing variables for my bakery business, the changing variables can be found in cells C7 to C10. So here I have C7 to C10. These are all depending, whatever optimal number that I need to make each day. So that can vary. So that's why that's considered my my changing variable cells. Now one thing I did not do is I did not click out of this cell. So I actually I have the wrong range in here. So now I need to go back and click cell B1. Now I need to click in here and select this range again. And now I have C7 to C10 as my changing variables. Okay, so now I need to add my constraints. And these constraints are listed in steps B through E. So we just really need to start putting them in. So the first thing I want to do is add. So now I want to add. And for some reason there's a little quirk, so I'm not sure what's going on. But we want to do B3 is less than or equal to D3. So I'm going to click on B3, and I have my symbols here, and then I'm going to click on D3. So I want to add, so now I can add the next one, B4, less than or equal to D4. B4 is less than or equal to D4. Add. C10. So I have C10 is less than or equal to F10. I have C7, so I'm completely out of order here, but that's fine. F7, add, and so I want C8 to F8, and I want C9 to F9. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to do the range C7 to C10. So I'm going to select C7 to C10, and I want to change that so that it's an integer. And basically all that's saying is it has to be a whole number. So when I use this formula, I can't put in 1.5 or whatever. So now I'm going to click OK. And you should see set objective B1, changing variable cells, which is this range here. So these numbers can be changed. And then this is the constraints, B3. So basically what it's saying is B3 cannot be more than 12. It must be less than or equal to 12. And it's saying that B4 has to be less than or equal to $200. And then the same thing down here. So we have, this is the maximum amount of birthday cakes we can make a day. So that's why we have C10 to F10. The only number you can put in here is 1. So we just want to make sure that our formula up here is going to work with these constraints. So we want to go ahead and click solve. And solver found a solution, so all constraints are optimally conditioned and are satisfied. So click OK. And notice that it actually put those in for us. So, all right. So we've run solver and accepted the solution. So that's it. So you can go ahead and save this project and submit it. And of course, if you have questions, you feel free to email me or call me.